Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to talk about a man named Earl Shaffer, who is, by historical accounts, the first thru hiker of the Appalachian Trail, all the way back in 1948. I'm a history buff myself, and I find stories like this to be fascinating. Now, Earl wrote a book that was published in 1982 that I got to read called Walking with Spring. It was actually a gift somebody purchased for me. And I think that book is available over on Amazon. I'll put some links where you can pick up the book yourself if you want to. Now, a little bit about Earl. Earl, I think, might have been one of the first AT hikers to have a trail name too, as he was known as the Crazy One, because in 1948, people thought he was crazy for wanting to walk the entire Appalachian Trail. And in fact, a little bit of local folklore at the time kind of followed him along the trail as he picked up hitchhikes and went into general stores and things to resupply on his way up the trail. People kind of began to know who he was and what he was doing, and those stories kind of followed him up the trail. Now, a little bit about Earl Shaffer. He was born in York, Pennsylvania in 1918. So he grew up only about 20 miles from the Appalachian Trail. And he had a very good friend named Walter. Now, Walter and Earl would go out and walk the trail as youth. And they decided that at some point they were going to thru hike the whole Appalachian Trail. But before they could do that, the country went to war. So we entered World War II. Like many other men at the time, Earl enlisted in the Army in 1941 and became a radio man and went to the Pacific. Now, Walter, let me get his name right, Walter Weinmiller, his friend, also went to the Pacific Theater with him as well. I don't know if they were deployed together or not. That information I can't find. However, I do know that while overseas, Walter was actually unfortunately killed. So Earl did lose his good friend Walter in the war in the Pacific Theater. After returning home from World War II, Earl decided, I guess, to keep that promise. And in 1948, he set off from what at the time was the southern terminus of the Appalachian Trail, Mount Oglethorpe. I hope I'm saying that right. And started his journey north to Maine. And he had told people that this was his way of walking off the war, or dealing with the what we now know as PTSD from the war, losing his friend, and a lot of things that he had probably gone through in the time that he had been overseas. The crazy thing is he started his journey with his old Army rucksack and a pair of used leather boots. No stove, no tent, very sparsely equipped to start that trip out, which most of us, by today's standards, would think is insane. But that's all that Earl had at the time. Now, as the title of the book kind of notates, Walking with Spring, Walter is also kind of the first person to decide to kind of walk with the weather as spring became milder and milder as he went north, kind of setting the standard for today's thru hikers, honestly. And in those days, as you'll see if you read the book, a lot of Earl's hiking was rough because the Appalachian Trail was only about 11 years old when he thru hiked it. And because of the war effort that had been going on in the United States at the time, the trail was really not maintained or taken care of. So there was lots of instances within Earl's thru hike where he was literally bushwhacking his way through the trail because it was so overgrown, and he had to just kind of make his way however he could. Earl was able to finish his journey in only 124 days, which at the time I think is pretty amazing because that's averaging around 17 miles a day at that time, which is pretty good even by today's standards. Earl's thru hike of the Appalachian Trail was one of the first feats that actually kind of raised public awareness of the trail's existence, because this was at a time where the predominant type of media was newspapers and radio. For the next feat on the Appalachian Trail, in 1965, Earl decided to thru hike the Appalachian Trail, but from the northern terminus to the southern terminus, which at this time had been switched to Springer Mountain. So that's a pretty neat story too, because he was able to finish that thru hike in only 99 days and become the first person to ever thru hike the trail north to south. So he's kind of got like two basically records on the AT. He was the first northbound thru hiker, and he was the first southbound thru hiker. In 1982, the Appalachian Trail Conference decided to publish Earl's book, which was titled Walking with Spring, if I told you guys. And again, I'll put some links and stuff where you can find that. I think you can buy that through the ATC as well. Again, in 1998, Earl was able to make his third thru hike of the Appalachian Trail, northbound again, to commemorate his 1948 hike. Earl was 72 years old and was able to complete the hike in, 173 days, which is pretty stellar for a 72-year-old war veteran. Unfortunately, not long after his last thru hike, Earl was diagnosed with a form of cancer, which did end up taking his life, and he passed away in 2002. On June 17th in 2011, Earl was inducted into the Appalachian Trail Hall of Fame as the first northbound thru hiker. And I believe there is still an exhibit dedicated to him today. I know at Springer Mountain there are a few things that you can actually see on Earl at the Trail Museum or whatever. That's a little building down by when you start at Springer Mountain. And so if you get a chance, you should really check that out. And if you like to read and you'd like to read more about Earl's journey, which I recommend because it's pretty interesting to hear it from a first-person point of view in 1948 with what limited supplies and resources were available back then for somebody who wanted to take such a long backpacking trip. So again, I'll put some links down below where you guys can get the book if you would like to. And if you enjoyed this video and you enjoy this kind of content, please subscribe and leave me a comment and maybe tell me something that I don't know about the AT or even one of the other national trails, because I love history and I love hearing your guys' stories. And leave me a like too. Until next time, see ya.